In this session of Weaving Basics, we will learn how to remove, chain, and store a warp. We've now finished our warp. We've got it choked, we've got it, the counting threads are all in there. We're ready to take it off the warping board. One of the problems with warping boards is that the pegs often tend to be too skinny. There is an awful lot of tension, as you can see on my warp here. And what I'd like you to look at is how these pegs, even though they are a much thicker doweling than you would normally get on a warping board, are going to spring back because of the release of the tension of the warp. I've wound this warp under fairly tight tension. Normally I don't wind my warps quite so tightly, but I did want to show you how this works. It is not necessary to wind a warp under tight tension. It is very necessary to wind a warp with even tension. A moderate tension that is even is actually much better for a warp than a tight tension. However, we're going to take this off. You will notice that these pegs are going to spring out a little bit as I release this warp. So I put my hand down here, I start to pull. I make sure my guide thread is completely clear and has not been tied into any of my choke ties, and if we watch here, you can now see this spring. Did you hear it? If you look at it here, you can see that the loop that I had on this peg no longer fits. It's a distance of maybe about so much it has come in. That means that over all of these pegs, I have lost so much of a warp length from the inner edge to the outer edge of my warp. Our warp has now come off the pegs and we're ready to chain it. We need to chain a warp so that we can keep it safe while it is in storage until you are ready to use it. What you do when you chain a warp is you simply use a chain stitch from crochet, but of course it's magnified. I'll just loosen this a little bit so we have something to work with. You take the end of the loop, you throw it over. You have your hand in this loop here. Put your hand through and pull a loop up, making sure that you keep this from pulling through. You do not want the end to pull all the way through. You only want to pull up a loop. Once you've pulled the loop up, you chain with your fingers as if your fingers were the crochet hook, and your warp gets chained all the way up until you are close to the cross. Do not pull this last one all the way through. If you were to pull this loop all the way through, it would secure the chain in such a way that you would be unable to take it apart easily. So make sure that the cross end does not pull through, because what you want to be able to do is when you get to the loom is to simply pull it apart like so. Once you have chained your warp and it's ready to store, what I normally do is I take a Ziploc bag, I make sure that my fingers are in where the cross is, I drop my warp into my Ziploc bag, making sure that the cross part is on top, like so, close it up, and then you can label the bag for your warp. You are now ready to go to the loom and start to dress it. Subscribe to my channel for more videos on weaving basics.